says, love is a rose and you better not pick it. It only grows when it's on the vine. There are a lot of songs about roses, and every one of them seems to have a warning tied into them. In the words of the band Guns N' Roses, every rose has its thorn, just like every night has its dawn, and every cowboy sings a sad, sad song. Every rose has its thorns. And Bette Midler reminded the world when the night has been too lonely and the road has been too long, and you think that love is only for the lucky and the strong. Just remember, in the springtime, far beneath the bitter snows, there's a seed that with the sun's love in the spring becomes the rose. And in that song, even, there is this line, I say love, it is a razor that leaves the soul to bleed. Roses come with thorns. And in Jesus' day, the city of Jerusalem, the Jewish temple, it defined the skyline, and it was the rose of the Jewish people. And it was also a thorn. It was the place that had become the center of worship for a people that had started their life together, worshiping in small groups, worshiping in the home, and suddenly this temple became a great expense for them. And worship in the home kind of shifted to worship in this grand setting where the priests would be so high up on the rooftop that the people below could barely see what was happening and the sacrifices that were being offered. And of course, there was a lot of emphasis on giving offerings to support the temple. And the Jewish temple, defining the skyline in Jerusalem, was a rose, but it was also a thorn in the flesh of the Roman Empire. A reminder that here was a people that had a long history of battling back against all of the countries that had overtaken them, and eventually standing up to them and being their own people again. And today, Jesus begins crooning a bittersweet song about roses and thorns, about empires and their falls, about the tower of a temple crumbling into ruins. And those thorny words are a bit too sharp for the people that are around listening. No one likes to hear their world is going to crumble and fall. No one likes to hear that what they built up brick by brick by brick, year by year by year, is one day going to collapse and come apart in front of their eyes. We've all heard that saying, you know, if you have your health, you have everything you need. And we all know what that means. And we all know that tucked within those words is the recognition that words like cancer and stroke and leukemia and heart attack or blood clot or aneurysm can rip these temples apart all too quickly and change everything. But we also know that tucked within those words is a truth. That there are people that have their health and yet have yet to find happiness or contentment or gratitude or appreciation. And we know that though there are those whose temples are falling apart and whose health has faded, and yet in the midst of their living, they do have gratitude and happiness and joy and appreciation for each day. And Jesus therefore tells the people that the temple will fall. And he means a lot by that, not just the Jewish temple, but his own. There are roses laden with thorns, but there are other roses, and he says this temple, his body, when it falls, it will be rebuilt in 3 days. And there's confusion with the people about what temple Jesus is talking about. This rose is riddled with blood and thorns. This rose will be buried on the hillside and left for dead, but this rose will blossom and flower again. Even more beautiful than it was before. And Jesus doesn't minimize the thorns that come with the rose. But he reminds us that there are roses. And he starts pointing to the most beautiful of all. The pearls of great price, the overlooked, the forgotten. Points the way to the garden, the truth of what we'll find there. Where we'll find our lives are eventually and truly rooted. Where we'll find the life that has the power to sing us to sleep in the dark and stormy nights, and the power to wake us again. There are thorny promises, what I call them in this life, and that's what Jesus is talking about. But they are the promises that matter most of all to us. The promises that will carry us through, the promises that allowed a first century church to grow in spite of the persecutions that came along with that growth, in spite of the lions and the Colosseums, in spite of the humans that became torches at Roman parties. There are thorny promises, like a cleaning bucket after a hurricane, or a mosquito net with mosquitoes buzzing outside, but that net is covering the children and keeping them free from malaria. There are the thorny promises of a father who decides he will take an experimental treatment for whatever his ailment is, not because he expects to survive, but because he knows genetically his children might face the same disease, and he wants medical science to learn, so it might help them. There are the thorny promises that whisper the human spirit and the grace of God will not be crushed. But I have to, in the next few minutes, to listen to the words of Ain't No Grave, to see the thorns. And the thorns on the screen will start with the Jerusalem temple as it was, or envisioned as it was, before its fall in 70 AD, and then some of the rubble after the fall. And there'll be images of the Twin Towers and Katrina and the Philippines, and then there'll be images of the rose, of the promise, letting go of some of the thorns and clinging tightly to the medium. Remember that promise and share that promise. Think about the thorns in your life, but think about the roses that are promised.